Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about a problem that millions of English learners quietly struggle with, a problem you may know very well. You understand English, you can listen, you can read, but when it's time to speak, the words disappear. Your mind goes blank, your voice stays silent. If this feels familiar, you are not alone. Learners from Bangladesh, Japan, Iran, Brazil, and many other countries tell the same story. They say, "I understand everything, but I cannot speak." In this episode, we're going to gently explore why this happens and, more importantly, how to change it. I'll speak slowly and clearly so you can follow me, relax, and listen. Understanding without speaking usually comes from fear, from overthinking, from too much listening and not enough using your voice. In many countries, learners grow up studying English quietly, focusing on exams, grammar, and correctness. The brain becomes good at understanding, but the mouth never gets trained. Speaking is a physical skill, and without practice, it stays weak. Learners from Japan often say they are afraid of making mistakes. Learners from Iran say they translate too much in their mind. Learners from Brazil say they know many words but cannot form sentences quickly. Learners from Bangladesh say they understand teachers but freeze in real conversation. These experiences are different, but the cause is the same. English stayed in the head and never moved into the voice. The good news is, this can change. You don't need to learn more grammar. You don't need more vocabulary. You need small, daily speaking habits that train your mouth and your confidence together. Start with short sentences. Speak slowly. Allow mistakes. Speak to yourself. Shadow simple audio. Use English in tiny moments of your day. When you do this, your fear becomes smaller, your confidence becomes stronger, and speaking starts to feel natural. Understanding English is already a big success. Now it's time to let your voice catch up. So breathe, relax, and remember, you are not broken, you are just untrained. And with gentle, daily practice, your voice will find its way. And now that we've named the problem, let's slow down and look at it more deeply, because understanding why this happens is the first step toward changing it. When you understand English but cannot speak it, it does not mean you are bad at languages. It does not mean you are slow. It does not mean you lack talent. In fact, it usually means the opposite. It means your brain is strong at understanding patterns, sounds, and meaning. It means you have spent years listening, reading, and absorbing English quietly. Your mind knows the language, but your mouth has not been invited into the process yet. And speaking, unlike listening or reading, is not passive. Speaking is active. It requires movement, timing, courage, and repetition. Without that practice, the voice stays silent, even when the mind understands clearly. Many learners from Bangladesh tell a similar story. They study English from a young age. They read textbooks. They understand teachers. They can answer written questions well. But when someone speaks to them directly, especially a stranger, their heart beats faster. Their thoughts race. The words they know suddenly feel far away. This happens because English has lived mostly on paper and in the classroom, not in real spoken moments. The brain learned English as information, not as communication. And communication requires a different kind of training. It requires using your voice in real time without stopping to think about every rule. Learners from Japan often describe a deep fear of making mistakes. They understand English well, but they hesitate to speak because they want to be correct. They worry about pronunciation. They worry about grammar. They worry about sounding strange. This fear builds a wall between understanding and speaking. The brain checks every word before allowing it out, and that checking takes time. Conversation moves faster than checking, so the brain freezes and silence appears. This is not a lack of ability. It is too much control. Speaking requires permission to be imperfect. Learners from Iran often explain that translation is their biggest challenge. They understand English when they hear it, but when they want to speak, they translate from Persian into English in their head. This translation step slows everything down. By the time the sentence is ready, the moment has passed. Conversation does not wait. Speaking requires direct thinking in English, even if the sentences are simple. Translation is useful for study, but it becomes a barrier during speaking. Learners from Brazil often say they feel comfortable listening and even writing, but speaking feels chaotic. They know many words, but they cannot organize them quickly. This happens when learners collect vocabulary without practicing sentence flow. Words are stored, but not connected. Speaking is not about choosing words one by one. It is about using ready-made phrases, patterns, and rhythms. Without that practice, the mind feels full, but the mouth feels empty. These stories come from different countries, cultures, and languages, but the pattern is the same everywhere. Understanding grows faster than speaking, because understanding is passive. Speaking grows slower because it is active. This difference is normal, it is human, and it can be changed. One of the most important ideas to understand is this: comprehension and production are different skills. Listening and reading train your brain to recognize language. Speaking trains your brain and body to produce language. Recognition comes first, production comes later. This is true for children, for adults, for everyone. The mistake many learners make is believing that more listening alone will suddenly create speaking. Listening helps, but speaking only grows when you speak. There is no shortcut around this. The voice must be used. Now let's talk about silence, because silence is often misunderstood. Many learners believe silence means failure, but silence is not failure. Silence is a sign that your brain is working. It is processing. It is preparing. The problem begins when silence becomes a habit, when silence feels safer than speaking, when silence becomes comfort. To grow, you must gently challenge that comfort, not with pressure, not with fear, but with small, safe speaking moments. This is why speaking to yourself is so powerful. When you speak to yourself, there is no judgment, no interruption, no pressure. You control the speed. You control the topic. You control the moment. This allows your mouth to practice without fear. It allows English to move from understanding into expression. Many learners underestimate this practice, but it is one of the strongest bridges between silence and conversation. Another reason learners understand but cannot speak is that they have trained their brain to be a listener, not a speaker. In class, teachers speak. Students listen. In videos, speakers speak. Learners listen. This creates a habit of silence. The brain becomes very good at receiving language, but the mouth stays inactive. To change this, you must reverse the habit. When you listen, pause and repeat. When you watch, pause and speak. When you read, read aloud. Turn passive learning into active learning. Now let's talk about speed. Many learners feel they cannot speak because they are too slow. But slowness is not the problem. Speed is not the goal. Clarity is the goal. Native speakers speak fast because they have practiced for thousands of hours. You do not need to speak fast to speak well. Slow speaking with clear intention builds strong foundations. Speed will come naturally later. When learners try to force speed too early, anxiety increases and confidence drops. Slow is strong. Slow is stable. Slow is safe. Another hidden reason learners struggle to speak is emotional memory. If you have ever been laughed at, corrected harshly, or embarrassed while speaking English, your brain remembers that feeling. The brain tries to protect you by avoiding speaking. This is not weakness. This is survival. To heal this, you must create new emotional experiences with English. Calm ones, safe ones, positive ones. Speaking alone, speaking with kind partners, speaking without correction. Over time, your brain learns that speaking English is not dangerous, and when fear fades, speech returns. Now let's talk about perfection. Perfection is one of the biggest enemies of speaking. When you aim to be perfect, you hesitate. When you hesitate, you stop. Speaking is not a performance, it is communication. People do not need perfect grammar to understand you. They need clarity, effort, and intention. Many fluent speakers make grammar mistakes every day. They keep speaking anyway. Fluency grows from movement, not correctness. Another important shift is moving from words to phrases. Many learners study single words for years, but speaking requires chunks of language. Phrases like, "I think that," "I'm not sure," "it depends," "in my opinion," "let me try again." These phrases give you time, they give you structure, they give your brain space to think. Learning phrases instead of isolated words changes everything. Now let's talk about identity. When you speak English, you may feel like a different person, quieter, simpler, less expressive. This can feel uncomfortable, but this is temporary. As your speaking grows, your personality returns, your humor returns, your opinions return, your confidence returns. English becomes another way to express who you already are, not a replacement for your identity. This takes time, patience, and practice, but it always happens for those who keep speaking. And finally, let's return to the most important message. If you understand English but cannot speak it, nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not incapable. You are simply untrained in speaking. Training is something you can do, slowly, gently, daily, with kindness. Your voice is already inside you. It has been waiting, and when you give it space, time, and permission, it will come out. Not perfectly, not suddenly, but steadily. And one day, you will speak without thinking about speaking. You will understand and respond naturally, and you will remember this moment and realize that the silence was only a phase, not your destination.